The Florida Gators are on their bye week, and they've got quite a few areas to improve. And we're going to talk about the biggest ones here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy Wednesday. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole Nine Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's J-A-S-E medical.com. And now we're talking about the biggest areas of improvement for the Florida Gators during the bye week. And I think for me, we have to start with defense tackling, because this is a team that they started hot. And I think that's really like they got 64 missed tackles on the season as a team on defense. So not including special teams, but they've got 64 missed tackles on the season. That's including going through the first 2 games with 9 missed tackles, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was like 3 against Utah and then 6 against McNeese State. So going into basically the past 4 games, they had 9 tackles. 55 tackles in the past 4 games is not ideal, right? Scooby Williams has 9 of those tackles. These are all according to Pro Football Focus. Scooby Williams has 9 missed tackles so far this season. Miguel Mitchell has 7. Shamar James, Derek Wingo, Jaden Hill, and Taraja Mitchell all have 5, and RJ Moten has 4. Some of those are understandable, because you look at Scooby Williams and Shamar James specifically, they're often coming across the field, trying to make tackles at a perhaps unfortunate angle, playing a ton of snaps. But then you look at guys like RJ Moten has like 8 tackles on the year, 4 missed tackles. Derek Wingo has 4 tackles on Pro Football Focus and has 5 missed tackles on Pro Football Focus. You can't perfect everything, but this is a team that early in the season showed strong pursuit angles, gang tackling, and wrapping up. And this is something that they've kind of lost along the way. And I don't know if it's more indicative of, like teams are adapting, getting more in space, whatever it might be. It's bad, though, is the point. And this is the kind of thing that you can improve, because you can't improve everything in the bye week. But this is one of those things that you can improve in the bye week. Like, you can't improve, I want to say you can't improve too much about the pass rush without blitzing, because when you look at that a lot of that is you need to win your battles, and your players need to be good enough to win those battles. And so for some areas, they're just not going to improve over a bye week. But tackling is one of those things where you can say, hey, guys, this week, while we've got this extra time, we're going to go back to basics a little bit. And we're going to go back to finding form tackles, like being able to just line it up and tackle players on your own, but also adding more effort into flying to the ball. Also put more focus on actually keeping your eyes on the ball carrier. Because we can go back to Kentucky, the second drive of the game. I think it was the second drive of the game, or maybe first drive, second play, something like whatever Ray Davis's, I think it was 75-yard touchdown run. We can go back to Jalen Kimber just sprinting into the pile with his head down and not putting a legitimate effort into making the tackle. And we've seen that a lot too, of just not putting the effort into making a form tackle. Just guys trying to fly in blindly and just hope, hey, if I collide with this person, that's a tackle. or guys being passive about things, like just breaking down and just sitting there with your arms like, all right, let's do it, as if they're just gonna be like, oh, it's hug time, and run into you and allow you to wrap them up and bring them down. This is a team that has kind of lost their way as far as being a sound tackling defense. And we've seen, obviously it's worse in some games as opposed to others. Like the Kentucky game was really bad, partially because a lot of the tackles that you had to make were in space. Tackles in space are hard to make. Let's not pretend it's easy to do. But there have been some games where they've been better than others. Let's look at the numbers for the Kentucky game just in terms of missed tackles. There were a total of 52 tackles made for the Florida Gators, both like solo and assisted. 17 missed tackles. That's atrocious. 17 missed tackles is what we call unacceptable. Like, that's not something that you could ever excuse. You look at the South Carolina game, they had 11 missed tackles. That's what, 28 missed tackles? I think it was 17 for Kentucky. So 28 missed tackles in 2 games. Like, you look at Vanderbilt, 9's not bad. It's not good, but it's not bad, right? Charlotte, they had a rough go of things at certain points. They had 7 missed tackles in that one. But it's like, this is a team that they've shown the ability to be a good tackling team. So we know they can improve upon that, get better, and get clean at it again. But they just have not had the fundamental parts of tackling. They haven't shown proper technique. They haven't shown taking proper angles with the right level of aggression, because you can be incredibly aggressive, but also be good at it. Like, you look at a player like Fred Warner with the San Francisco 49ers, and I understand maybe it's not ideal to go, oh, you look at arguably the best linebacker on the planet. But that's who you want to learn. That's who you want to emulate, the best players at that position. Fred Warner runs in like a freaking banshee, but he wraps people up and brings them to the ground. And this team has lost their way there. They're not hitting at proper heights. They're either going too high or going too low. Jaden Hill had a couple of those screw ups. You look at what was it? Was it Vanderbilt? The 4th down conversion? Yeah, Vanderbilt, 4th down. Jaden Hill gets he puts his head down, misses completely, and then he gets saved by TJ Searcy, a true freshman, stripping the ball out. But that was a 4th down conversion if TJ Searcy doesn't strip that ball out. So this is one of those things where you've lost your technique. You can get it back. Use this time, take a breath, and learn to get back to basics in terms of making just sound form tackles. We'll switch to the offensive side of the ball, but before we talk about that, today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Jace Medical, and everyone should feel empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected, and that's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in case of an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure that you have the medication in hand, and Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com using promo code LOCKEDON. Also, today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Snap into the NFL action this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, listen to this. New customers, you bet $5. Place a $5 bet on anything you want. You get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Yeah, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, whether you win or lose. So you can bet $5 on something absurd with insane odds. Every team in the 1 p.m. window to make a field goal this weekend in the NFL. Bet $5 on that. You get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Come on. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action now. You've got NBA kicking up. You've got the NFL in full swing. MLB playoffs are going on right now. Hockey's back. Everything. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. And thank you from Brazil. Thank you, because as you can see, this is not the usual, if you're watching, this is not the usual podcast setup, but for today and tomorrow, here it is. And for about a week after that, it's going to be different. So this is going to be a wild time right now. But circling back to areas that this team can and should improve on during this bye week now before the Georgia game, I think you have to look at offensive line play. And I'll start off by saying that I don't want to come off as being pessimistic, or I don't want to come off as being too harsh on this team here. But pass pro is a little bit of a hard sell for me right now as something you can improve. Run game, you can. But pass pro, it's a little bit of a hard sell for me right now, because with pass protection, like I've mentioned 1,000 times, it's about being a unit and working together as a unit. And this offensive line is constantly shuffled. And that's been one of the reasons that they've been bad. But maybe if Kingsley Ogwuakan is 100% healthy, maybe he can help out. And I say maybe, and I understand I've been very harsh on Kingsley, and that's nothing personal against him. It's just what I've seen on film. He was bad against Tennessee and Kentucky. There's no other way to put that. He was bad. And I understand that's because he wasn't 100% healthy, which is why I'm saying if he's 100% healthy, maybe he can help. But for me, I think the part against Tennessee and Kentucky that really didn't sit well with me for as far as Kingsley's presence on this offensive line compared to Jake Slaughter. I don't think that Kingsley elevated the line around him. And I think that's what a truly great center does, or what a great or good center does. I think a good, great center, you elevate the line around you. And I don't think that's what Kingsley did against Tennessee or Kentucky, which is why I'm sitting here going, I don't know if his return makes that much of an impact. Because even if he physically couldn't do everything that he was supposed to do, I don't think he added much to the game, communication or mentally wise. I don't think he did much there. So that's one of the main reasons that I'm hard. It's hard to sell me on this pass protection getting better. The run game, though, I think you can improve a lot if you're this offense. If you're Billy Napier, if you're Rob Sale, if you're Darnell Stapleton, if you're anybody involved in putting together this run plan. I'm assuming Russ Callaway has a part, Jabbar Jalouk. The run game has been significantly better this year, in my opinion, when you operate in gap schemes. I think that's been big for the Florida Gators, where they go, hey, gap blocking, we've been a lot better. Like that's just what we've been doing. And I understand that Billy Napier, Rob Sale, Darnell Stapleton, they want this to be a team where you go, oh, we run that wide zone style, that Shanahan style offense. Like that's what we do. That's fine and dandy. It hasn't been working too much. And I think when you look at this team, you can look at when this team has gone more gap-based, they've been better. Like that's just something where, and I don't know if it's just me thinking that, but this team seems and feels better when using gap-based blocking. You look at the GH counter that I've talked about a billion times. You look at running power, running wide power, running all these kinds of plays. This team's been better when they've gone more gap-focused. That's not like that's not an absurd thing to say either. This offensive line is just better at that. You look at getting Damian George just moving downhill as opposed to moving laterally. You can be better in certain ways. So for me, this offensive line, you can help them. And we talked about this a few weeks ago after the Kentucky game, I think it was, where we talked about how Billy Napier needs to help this offensive line more with this play calling. I get it. Wide zone's fun. Wide zone's cool. Wide zone's modern. You can help them more by leaning into their strengths. And their strengths right now with this offensive line that you've built is that they're better running gap blocking schemes. The notepad's far away from me, so I can't show you the GH counter now, but guard and tight end pull across the formation. Everyone else blocks to the other side. So that you can work this and you can be better. And that's something that I think this offensive line needs to focus on, because this offense, like, the scheme's fine. I don't care how many videos are posted on Twitter of, they did this really cool thing that's, the same thing they've been running. It just worked this time. And now you don't complain because it worked. But Sail, Flood, they've been running them. Flood is one of my favorite passing concepts. So I'm not about to go, I'm not about to complain about that. I'm not about to do that. Flood's great. It's awesome when it works. Okay? And yes, it worked this week against South Carolina. You could work it more often, but you've got to start leaning into what this team does well. They work Flood well. When the offensive line protects, they work Flood well. When the offensive line does their job, or when you give the offensive line the opportunity to do their job, GH counter works. Wide power works. You have to put this offensive line in position to succeed, because they've been what's been holding back this offense. The play calling, I understand, hasn't been awesome at all times. But the offensive line is what's been killing your offense. Because even when you call the right plays, most of the time, or half the time, we'll say, it hasn't been working out. Pass blocking. Run blocking, they've been pretty good in gap schemes. Give them the chance. Again, pass pro, I'm not sure you can get much better. It would be nice if we could do this insane thing called have 5 people run routes, 5 people block, and a quarterback manage that. That'd be really fun. But I don't think you're going to get that with this current offensive line. But I think you can put them in position to succeed run blocking. So do it, Nate. Like, continue to do that. But this is an offensive line that they've played better at times, and you can continue to improve upon that as you'd like. Okay? You can do that for the Florida Gators. You can improve there. We're about to talk about the secondary and where they can improve. But first, today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's what brings home the winning trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, the last thing that we have to talk about for this team, it's not the last area they can improve, obviously, but it's one of the areas I think you can improve. Like, I think looking at the secondary is the next level that we have to put there, because I get it. The secondary's been rough, and it's understandable, because when you look at who's playing in this secondary, a lot of it is young guys. Like, a lot of it's youth. You look at the starting safeties right now, or the safeties that are playing the most right now, are Jordan Castell, Bryce Thornton, 2 true freshmen. And guess what? They've also been your best options at safety right now. Okay? So those have been your best options here. 2 true freshmen. You look at corner. Jakeem Jackson's taken his bumps, but he's also made some strong plays in coverage. But far too often, when you look at this team, there's a receiver getting open, and I mean wide open. WAO, okay? If you watch JT O'Sullivan, the QB school, you know what WAO means. It's wide, beep, open. Okay? Whether they get the ball or not. That's an important part too, where if we're going to play this game, I like to think that I'm a process-based person, but that's not super relevant to running the team. But Billy Napier, this coaching staff, everybody, they've said we're going to be process-oriented. Okay. If you're going to be process-oriented, that means that results matter, but you care about if our process was right. It's okay whether we get the right result or not, because we trust our process. Let's be process-oriented. Let's be detail-oriented. Whether these receivers get the ball or not, far too often, there's someone open downfield. Far too often, there's someone open generally near the sideline. So by this standard of we want to be detail oriented, not doing well. Okay? So that's the detail oriented approach of regardless of the result, the process hasn't really been great either. Let's play devil's advocate and look at the results oriented mindset. Because far too often, also, when the ball does go up, whether or not someone's covered, they catch the ball, whether it's contested catches. They do that. This secondary, they've made a few great plays in coverage, but they've also had a few bad plays in coverage, or not even a few bad plays, just plays where they were there and lost the jump ball, or the receiver just made the catch, whether like without having the jump, it's just contested catch and they made it. That's happened far too often. So whether you're taking the detail-oriented approach or the results-oriented approach, secondary play hasn't been great. And again, it's understandable because of how young some of these guys are. But you look at what's happening with Jason Marshall, has had quite a few plays where he's left someone wide open. And I don't just mean the receiver's finger got caught in his face mask. I don't just mean that. I mean, you look at the Tennessee touchdown that was a short touchdown. It was like maybe like 10 yards ish, if I'm not mistaken. And it was Jason Marshall playing press coverage. Receiver goes in and then out, and Jason Marshall lunges for the press when he goes in, whiffs, gets beat, receiver wide open for a touchdown. That, first off, that was bad. Whether you're looking process or results, that sucked. But then you look at Jalen Kimber against South Carolina. I forgot who he was covering. It might have been Nicholas Harbor, the true freshman. Harbor just goes up over him and reels it in and wins that jump ball. So there's stuff like that where it can't happen. Like that's the gist of it. It can't happen because whether you want to be detail oriented or process oriented or results oriented, it's not necessarily working. These are things you can fix. Okay, you can, again, similar to talking about tackling, you can go, hey, let's break down to the basics. Whether it's timing your press right and not lunging, whether it's when the ball goes up, you need to do your damnedest to get your hand in between the receiver's hands when they're trying to catch the ball with two. Try to break that up. Whatever it is, whether it's working better at when you're working vertical. So like if like pinching them to the sideline. If I'm running vertical with a receiver and we're down the sideline and it's the sideline, the receiver, the DB. As the DB, it's my responsibility to not push him, obviously, but squeeze him. Keep running with him and squeezing and just sliding him to the sideline. Use the sideline as your friend. Because if you can squeeze him out there and you can take him out of the play there, I don't care if you pick it off or not. If you're forcing an incompletion there, we're going to be happy. Whether it's things like that, just working in little nuances where you can improve your play. And talking about keeping your eyes and working discipline when you're playing zone coverage, whatever it might be. There's quite a few things that the secondary is doing wrong here. And a lot of it comes down to inexperience with players, but there's also Jalen Kimber and Jason Marshall who make some mistakes here and there that they shouldn't be making. And Jaden Hill also does that. And like Jordan Castell, Bryce Thornton, I get it. Like I'm not holding them to the same standard as I'm holding Jason Marshall or Jalen Kimber or Jaden Hill. But these are correctable things that you can fix during the season. Like I've mentioned before, some things that are going wrong with this team, you can't fix without adding talent. But for now, some things you can. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free. We have this in the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more Florida Gators football. We're going to talk about positive things tomorrow. Don't worry. I promise you. We have positive things on the docket For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole 9 Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33, and I'll see you all tomorrow.